Hey guys, first Regardsman here, and I'll be talking about a multi-Melta heroic plasma pistol build for the heavy class in Space Marine 2 patch 13. Now, this time around, we are building for like full damage on a rate of fire Melta. Now, this gun is not very ammo efficient, but your damage output can be pretty tremendous, so we'll be using that today. Now, for the perk tree here, we do start off with the perk increase capacity first. The maximum ammo reserve of this weapon increases by 20% because you really need all the ammo you can get on this weapon because you will run out pretty regularly if you're not careful. Next perk here is Elite Restoration. The next perk here is Elite Restoration. Killing a Majoris or higher enemy restores 10% of your maximum ammo reserve. Cannot exceed maximum ammo capacity. Cooldown is 30 seconds. Now, this perk is a percentage restore, so having more total ammo on things like increased capacity and additional supplies will help you out a lot here, so definitely pick those up. Next perk here is Heavy Fire. While in heavy stance, fire rate increases by 15%. Moving here to the perk Heavy Immunity for no knockback in heavy stance, and then the most important perk, which is Executioner's Fire. After a finisher, your fire rate increases by 25% for 5 seconds. Guys, when you have this perk active, this thing dumps out a ridiculous amount of damage against hordes. It is kind of insane how high your fire rate actually gets, so definitely pick this up. Next perk here is Heavy Might for 15% more damage in heavy stance. Moving into the perk Heavy Might once again for another 15% damage in heavy stance. Now, this time, we are skipping over Trick Shot for armor restore to take the perk over here, Discipline, instead. This one says when you have low ammo, you'll deal 25% more damage. This one will actually activate at 9 rounds in your magazine left, and the total ammo capacity on this build is like 33, so you actually get a lot of shots off of this 25% buff, and this substantially increases your DPS and also just makes your shots more worthwhile because, like I said before, the ammo efficiency here is pretty bad. Next perk here is Death Strike. After killing a Majoris or higher enemy in melee combat, he will deal 25% more damage for 10 seconds. Now, this will simultaneously trigger with the perk over here, Executioner's Fire, because this one does work on melee executes, not just melee kills, so a really strong perk combo together to like up your DPS. And the final perks here are Increased Capacity, Discipline of course, and Divine Might for 10% more damage. Though if you really don't care about this one, you could pick up Trick Shot. I just want to go for like full DPS on this one. Now, for the secondary, we do take the heroic plasma pistol, mainly because this one just dumps out a ridiculous amount of damage in this game at the moment, and we're building for double shots here with the perk at the bottom, Charge Cooling. Charge shots generate 10% less heat. If you do not take this perk, you cannot fire your plasma pistol more than once without overheating, so definitely pick it up for like, you know, a maximum DPS build when you're trying to use the heroic plasma pistol. And the rest of the perk tree is pretty standard. We start off with the perk plasma collection into the perk here, Rapid Cooling. Then I pick up plasma collection again down here to Divine Might, and then Blast Radius, Perpetual Velocity, Efficient Charge, and of course, you know, Perfect Cooling into the perk here, Charge Cooling. Now, I have managed to like one-shot Extremis occasionally on this thing, but just like the heavy plasma, this weapon's a little awkward because sometimes you'll hit them with like the direct shot and the like burst of the AoE, but that being said, the damage here is tremendous, so a really good option. Now for the heavy perk tree, the first perk I do take here is Restoration. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores an armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. Now armor restore here is definitely the strongest effect because any amount of armor remaining in Space Marine 2 will reduce all incoming melee damage to 0 even from bosses. That being said, I have taken multi-kill before into like Tyranids that did work fairly well, but overall I think this perk is a weaker option than Restoration. Next perk here is Fortitude for a health increase of 30%. This just makes you really tanky, so definitely pick this up. And on a multi-Melta build, I think Thermal Boost and the perk down here, Strategic Stand, aren't that strong. If you want to pick up one of these, you definitely could. Next perk here is Versatility for 20% more damage on our Heroic Plasma because this ups your damage a ton on your secondary. But if you just want like damage for your primary and a little bit for your secondary, you can take Overwhelming Power for the 10% buff within 10 meters of your Iron Halo for your entire team. The next perk here is Additional Supplies. Ammo capacity for all team members' primary weapons increases by 25%. On a rate of fire multi-Melta, just take this perk. Like, even with this perk active, you will probably run out sometimes or be pretty close. You usually live on like the edge of ammunition on this build, which is actually pretty good for perk effects like Discipline because being low ammo does give you that huge DPS increase. But that being said, you definitely want like a higher base capacity because that will not only give you more rounds in total, obviously, but it will also give you more rounds that are actually active for that Discipline buff. Next perk here is Consecutive Execution. Execution, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession before equipment charged by 1. The cooldown is 90 seconds. Now, 90-second Pyroblaster Canister, Melta Bomb, Crack, all of these are very strong for you. This helps out your Horde clear a ton, and getting equipment regen on this build will actually save you a ton of ammo. Next perk here is Power Regulator for 20% less energy loss on Iron Halo. Now, this does come out to be like a little slower on the recharge than the Field Adjustment perk is overall, but it's pretty damn close, and you don't really lose any durability, so for that reason, I do prefer it on this build. Next perk here is Brute Force. When Iron Halo is in cooldown, range damage increases by 15%. Now, this perk will simultaneously trigger with Overwhelming Power or just your Iron Halo, because your Iron Halo does count as being in cooldown while it is active, so really strong perk effect here. And the final perk is Offensive Capability. When active, Iron Halo deals damage over time to all enemies within 5 meters, because this perk is just godly. It saves my life all the time. You can run through brambles, spore mines, cultists, these skulls from the sorcerers and stuff like that. Super good utility perk. I pretty much always grab this one. Now, for our prestige perk options, number 1, you just take Auxiliary Reload, because not having the ammunition restore from this perk just sucks ass on like pretty much every heavy build, but especially this one, so you will definitely want this. Then move here into the perk Conviction for a 25% health damage reduction for 10 seconds on Armor Break. This on top of Fortitude makes you substantially tankier, so definitely take this one. And the next perk here is Indomitable Spirit for no knockback on gun strikes, because no knockback will save your life here. And the final perk is up to you. I just took Exponential Force for more melee damage, because sometimes this does save you a bit of ammo, though you could really take like Duelist, Reverberating Impact, or like Home Precision for whatever reason if you want to do that. But that's pretty much all there is for this heavy build, guys. The Rate of Fire Multi-Melta is definitely an S tier weapon in like terms of damage output and horde control. You can use this against Chaos and Tyranids. It will perform very well. It's just the ammo economy is a bit limited at some points, but that being said, if you're playing with like a proper team and not by yourself like I am, it's significantly easier to manage that, and hopefully this build guide helps you. And if you like content like this, subscribe for more, and as always, thank you for watching. Take it easy. Bye. Hey guys, first Guardsman here, and I'll be talking about a Pyrecannon build for the heavy class in Space Marine 2 patch 13.2. And now the Pyrecannon, just like the Pyroblaster, had a burn damage fix. All the perks are now properly functioning, and not only that, the boss damage feels way better now, and this one can positively melt bosses and hordes, and for that reason we'll be using it today, because it's actually a pretty strong effect, even though the Pyrecannon is definitely weaker than the Pyroblaster is. Now, the variant I choose here is the Venting Speed version or the Ammo Capacity version, but for me, I think Venting Speed is a bit better, just because being able to fire for longer here, especially with the perk setup we have on this build, Strategic Stand, that is better for our CHP recovery and being able to put out our full burn. So for that reason, I do kind of prefer it here, though you might struggle with ammo a little bit. If you want that, you can definitely pick up the Magazine Capacity version instead. Now, for the perk tree here, I do start off with the perk Improved Fast Venting, moving here into the perk Eternal Flame. Burning time increases by 25%. We are going for a maximum burn build on this, though there are like some caveats you can do I'll get into in a second. But first up, we increase capacity into the perk here, Flame of Ascension. Burning 5 enemies restores 1 armor segment. Cooldown is 30 seconds. You definitely want this. Like, the CHP recovery on this weapon is not super high, even with Strategic Stance, so for that reason, armor restoration here, it does help out a bit. And then we pick up the perk here, Potent Flame, for even more burning damage, down here into the perk Divine Might. Then we go into the perk Resilient Flame and Pure Flame for even more burn, because the burn is really strong right now, so for that reason, we'll be using it on this build. And also having like a 0 charge up time in the heavy class does feel pretty good, though I will say, if you want to skip over Strategic Stand for like Fortitude to be tankier, you can definitely do that. I would just go for the bottom perk here with Heavy Immunity, and the one down here, Flash Burn, because getting knocked around in your Pyrecannon sucks ass, so for that reason, I do kind of like these sometimes. But that is up to you, and that's all there is for the Pyrecannon. Now, for our secondary, I do take the newly buffed Firepower Plasma Pistol or the Rate of Fire Plasma Pistol, depending what you want. The big thing here is that in patch 13, all the common shot damage for relic tier Plasma Pistols got up by like 30%. They have way better contested health recovery now, and you actually have quite a few more perk options. And also, on this build, the Pyrecannon is not super strong at contested health recovery, so having an option in your secondary here, like an Inferno Pistol or Plasma for like burst CHP recovery, is very strong for you, which is why I picked this up. Now, for the perk tree here, I do start off with the perk Plasma Collection first, going here into the perk Rapid Cooling, Plasma Collection, down to the perk Divine Might. Then I go for Blast Radius, Perpetual Velocity, Efficient Charge, and the perk over here, Perfect Cooling. And I know I have it selected here, but I would also pick up plasma collection, and alternatively you could go all the way down for blast radius, retaliation, and divine might for more damage. That is up to you. That's all there is for this weapon. Now for our perk tree, I do start off with the perk restoration first. Killing 7 enemies wraps a session restores an armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. Now this perk will stack with the perk over here, Flame of Ascension, pretty easily, so you'll get 2 armor bars and like a little Hormigod horde. Pretty nice effect there, though this one's obviously on a 30-second cooldown, whereas the restoration perk has a 15-second cooldown. That being said, more armor restore is always good. Next perk here is Strategic Stand. While in heavy stance and dealing damage restores 15% more contested health, and you don't lose control of heavy hits, cannot be knocked back, but will not be able to move. Now, not being able to move really does not matter on the heavy stance at all. All you have to do to move is just exit your heavy stance, and also the no knockback here is life-saving, and the more contested health recovery is also very nice. Next perk here is Versatility. After switching weapons, your secondary weapon does 20% more damage. Now, this will pretty much be up 24/7 on your plasma pistol. You may be wondering, why am I not taking overwhelming power here? Well, the thing is, our direct damage on our Pyrecannon is not what we're going for, and you really don't need the buff to your direct damage from like overwhelming power or brute force on this build, and for that reason, I do just take the versatility here instead, because our burn damage is where most of the damage is coming from on that weapon anyways. Next perk here is Additional Supplies. Ammo capacity for all team members' pyro weapons increases by 25%. This is a must-take on the Pyrecannon in my opinion. The Pyrecannon is not very ammo efficient at all, so I would definitely pick this up. This also makes your triggers of your auxiliary reload perk down here much better, so for that reason, it's a very valuable option. If you really don't want this, if you're playing in a group, you could pick up like Encompassing Aegis or like the Forbidden Bonds of Brotherhood, but that being said, it's up to you. I'm just taking this. Next perk here is Consecutive Execution. Killing 7 enemies and reps a session restores equipment charged by 1. The cooldown is 90 seconds. Now a 90-second Melta Bomb, Crack Grenade, Shock Grenade, these are incredibly valuable for you, and also a lot of your horde clear for like Majoris and Extremis will come from this, so really valuable for this build because the Pyrecannon is like way more of a horde clear tool like over time rather than like a Nova damage weapon, so for that reason this definitely helps out. Next perk here is Power Regulator. Iron Halo loses energy 20% more slowly, and then I move here into the perk Wrath of the Imperium. When Iron Halo expends all of its energy, enemies in a 10-meter radius take significant damage. Wait, actually I fucked this up. What you want to take here is Odds of Bastion, because Iron Halo's durability increases by 20%. This is pretty much mandatory to take with the Wrath of the Imperium perk here, because the way Wrath of the Imperium works is this perk actually puts out a ton of damage. However, you actually have to have your Iron Halo be used up entirely on the energy, and because of that, if you don't have a fatter durability, I guess I should say, a fat Iron Halo durability, you will just get your Iron Halo broken before it actually triggers this at all. And also keep in mind that if any enemy knocks you over while you have your Iron Halo active, your Iron Halo will automatically turn off, which will completely negate this effect, so be very careful of that, and just be aware that while this is strong, it can definitely be interrupted a lot. Next perk here is Offensive Capability. When active, Iron Halo deals damage over time to all enemies within 5 meters. That's pretty much all there is for the main perk tree. And for my Prestige perk options, I do take the perk Reverberating Impact first. Into the perk Auxiliary Reload. Melee kills of Extremis or higher enemies restore your private weapon's ammo by 1 magazine. You definitely want this on like every heavy stance weapon, really every weapon on heavy, because without this, your ammo economy definitely sucks. Next perk here is Conviction for a 25% health damage reduction for 10 seconds on armor break, and the final perk is Indomitable Spirit for no knockback during gun strikes, because both of these will save your life, and Conviction especially, if you don't have the perk here Fortitude, you really want the damage reduction from this perk, because you will just get one shot at times otherwise. So hopefully this build guide helped you. Hey guys, first Regardsman here, and I'll be talking about a heroic heavy bolt rifle build for the heavy class in Space Marine 2 patch 13. Now all of the bolters in this patch got a body shot damage buff of like 30%. That does affect this weapon and things like the heavy bolter, and because of that, this weapon feels a lot better this patch than it did before. And today we're using the grenade launcher variant, because obviously grenades are top tier in Space Marine 2 for contested health recovery and just like general horde clear. Now on the perk tree, I do start off with the perk here, Extended Magazine first. Magazine size increases by 15% of the maximum. This will up your total magazine and grenade portion, so a really valuable perk here. And on top of that, when it comes to the heavy class, your ammo regen off of this perk will take your magazine into consideration on this gun, so we're actually getting more ammo out of this for every trigger, so definitely pick this perk up. Next perk here is a Magazine Restoration. Moving here into the perk Cleaving Fire and Remote Threat. This one says enemies at a distance of more than 25 meters take 20% more damage. This is a nice perk to have. I mean, sometimes it won't come into play, but 25 meters is not as bad as it sounds initially, and there are a lot of enemies you'll be hitting with this. Next perk here is Great Might. Down here into the perk Increased Capacity. The maximum ammo reserve of this weapon increases by 20%. This will up your total grenades and your ammo capacity, so a really valuable perk for us. Next perk here is Headhunter into the perk here Recoupment. Killing a Majoris or higher enemy with a headshot this weapon restores one armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. This perk is super valuable in operations and hard strats because there are a lot of occasions where you'll be shot at by a devourer or something, and getting back one armor will prevent a ton of chip damage, so a really good perk for us. It also moves into a very strong perk as well here with Rapid Health. When your health's below 30%, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores health by 10%. Now, this perk is super easy to trigger on a grenade launcher for obvious reasons, so we're really strong to keep us topped off, and also a heavy class is very strong at low HP values and things like Fortitude and Conviction, so like staying above 30%, you're still very tanky, so really valuable perk for him. Next perk here is Perpetual Penetration, with the final perk option being Divine Might and Extended Magazine again, though alternatively you could pick up the perk here Remote Threat again if you don't want this one, but for the most part I think a flat 10% is a bit better than like a conditional 20, so that's why I grabbed this one. This one also ups our grenades at like point blank, though alternatively you could also skip over this perk and just pick up like Tactical Precision. That is all up to you, and that's pretty much all there is for the Heavy Bolt Rifle. Now for the secondary weapon, I do take the new Heroic Plasma Pistol, mainly because this thing is super complementary to like any bolter primary. The burst damage here is very high, it is very strong for bosses and extremists, and this gun can struggle with that sometimes, so for that reason we do pick this up. And now the way I build this is just for pure damage. I'm not going for the double shot with charged cooling, and the big thing here is just take Plasma Collection and go all the way down for things like Blast Radius and Blast Radius again, and also pick up the perk here Perpetual Velocity every single time, because this weapon has a very long charge up time, so having this perk will make that a little bit faster and is pretty much mandatory as far as I'm concerned. Now the rest of the perks here are Plasma Collection into the perk here Blast Radius and Retaliation and Divine Might, though alternatively you could skip this one for the exact same perk over here if you want to, but it's the exact same, you know, perk tree overall, and that's pretty much all there is for the Heroic Plasma Pistol. Now for the perk tree, we do start off with Restoration first, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores an armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. Now Saber has said that the heavy perk tree will get some like perk reworks at some point, but for now your options are pretty limited overall for like good build variety. So number one, the armor restoration here is just the best option. This perk does nothing, and this perk like outright sucks. Next perk here is Fortitude. Health increases by 30%. We don't benefit from heavy stance perks on the heavy bolt rifle at all, so this perk does nothing for us. And also this perk can buff up your damage if you want to take this, but overall a HP increase is just way better in my opinion. Next perk here is Versatility for a 20% buff on our secondary Heroic Plasma Pistol. This is a very strong buff to your damage, really fun to use, though I will say Overwhelming Power is also very strong. These are both up to you though. Next perk here is Additional Supplies. The ammo capacity for all of your team's primary weapons increases by 25%. Now, this will up your total grenade capacity and your ammo reserve, so really strong for us here because the heavy bolt rifle is not that ammo efficient on heavy, and having this perk definitely helps out. And so is the next one here with Consecutive Execution. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores equipment charged by 1. The cooldown is 90 seconds. Now, getting Melta bombs back on a 90-second cooldown will save you a ton of ammo, and you'll usually find like at least 1 or 2 useful equipment in your game. And also, Saber at some point said they might look into just giving you an option to choose some of the equipment as a starting option in your game, so perks like this might actually get even better in the future. But I would definitely pick this up. It saves you a ton of ammo because blowing up like 15 Hormigons with a multi-Melta on top of 4 Majoris, that is a very strong option for ammo conservation. Now the next perk here is Power Regulator. Iron Halo loses energy 20% more slowly. Now the perk up here, Field Adjustment, does come out to an overall faster recharge time, but this one is pretty close just because of the energy saved, and also doesn't lower down the durability of your Iron Halo itself. So I do prefer this option, but if you want this, you can definitely do that too. Next perk here is Brute Force. When Iron Halo is in cooldown, range damage increases by 15%. This is pretty much up 24/7 because your Iron Halo counts as in cooldown while it's in use, so a really strong perk effect here, and much stronger than the other options like Saving Grace, and Wrath of the Imperium is actually pretty good. It's not like super strong on this build. Final perk here is Offensive Capability. When active, Iron Halo deals damage over time to all enemies within 5 meters. This is just a super strong utility perk. It will one-shot Cultists, Spore Mines, Bramble. It just makes it really easy to pick up free executes as well. And Conversion Field is quite strong in a group if you're like coordinated, but overall, this is the best in my opinion. Now, for the Prestige perk options, The first one I take here is Auxiliary Reload. Melee kills of extremists or higher enemies restore your prime weapons ammo by 1 magazine. You pretty much always pick this up because even though you don't get grenades off this perk, it is definitely worth taking because the ammo economy of the heavy bolt rifle is not that strong. This will help that out. Next perk here is Conviction. When your armor is fully depleted, you will take 25% less health damage for 10 seconds. This is a perk you pretty much pick up on every class you can. It is such a strong damage reduction effect that will make you way tankier even without things like Fortitude, so definitely grab this one. The final perk options here are Indomitable Spirit for no knockback during Gunstrike because this will save your life. Being able to get a Gunstrike without being like staggered and stuff like that will absolutely give you back your CHP at times and just keep you from dying, so definitely grab this. And the final perk here is either Reverberating Impact, Exponential Force, Duelist, or Home Precision. That is up to you, but I think these three are just the overall best by far. And that's pretty much all there is for this build, guys. The Heroic Heavy Bolt Rifle definitely feels better now with that 30% body shot damage increase. The Heavy Bolter especially feels very strong with that, but hopefully this build guide helped you. Hey guys, first regardsman here, and so I'll be talking about a Heroic Heavy Bolter build for the Heavy class in Space Marine 2 Patch 13. Now, this build will be building around a Raven Guard setup with the Raven Guard bolt pistol skin and the Heroic Heavy Bolter with strategic stand to give us no knockback and way more contested health recovery in our heavy stance. Now, the Heroic Heavy Bolter is, in my opinion, the best heavy weapon for operations and hard strats currently, mainly because the Bolter's got a buff this patch to have significantly higher body shot damage, and because of that, you are able to just shred through Minotaur's hordes far more easily on the Heavy Bolter especially, and this is the best Heavy Bolter because you do have a fencing parry window with a 50% increase window as well, on top of the fact that this weapon will reach the maximum fire rate of a Heavy Bolter immediately as opposed to the Relic Tier option that does require a bit of wind up to actually reach like the maximum fire rate. So your DPS goes from 0 to 100, which is very strong for like just a general Heavy Bolter build, but especially on strategic stand, because that means we are getting our maximum contested health recovery immediately after, like, you know, pulling the trigger from heavy stance. So really good combo there. Now for the perk tree, I do start off with the perk here, Fast Venting first, moving here into the perk Perfect Cooling, and then we pick up the perk Increased Capacity and Headhunter for a 10% damage buff. Now on this build, you can skip over Heavy Immunity because we do have no knockback from a strategic stand, which makes this significantly better for like our perk tree options. Then move through here into the perk Adamant Restoration. Now you could take the perk Adamant Hunter if you wanted to, but on this build, you're usually going to be getting all of your contested health back far too fast to like actually sit below 30% HP, and you also don't have the Fortitude perk, so being at that low HP value is a little bit more dangerous. So for that reason, I do prefer Adamant Restoration. Next perk here is Heavy Might, and Heavy Might for a 30% damage buff in heavy stance. Then I go down here to grab the perk Heavy Precision for a reduced spread. This actually helps out a fair bit in my experience with like long range shooting. You don't have to take this if you don't want to. The alternative here is like skipping over this perk and just skipping over this perk and going down here for Perpetual Cooling and Divine Might. That is up to you. Now the next perk I take here, regardless, is Discipline. When you have low ammo, you'll deal 25% more damage. This buff to your damage is just tremendous. It triggers all the time, and you can definitely notice the 25% increase here. Super strong perk effect. The one down here for weapon spread is not like god awful. This one is just way better because damage is damage. And the next perk here is Fast Venting, up here into the perk Increased Capacity, and the final perk is Great Might for 10% bonus damage against Terminus level enemies, and that's pretty much all there is for this build setup. Now I will say, if you don't care about the ammo up here that much, you can skip this perk and like skip this perk here and also go down for Divine Might for a 10% buff, or alternatively you just like skip one of these perks here and just pick up Perpetual Cooling. There are quite a few ways you can build this, and the perk down here, Perpetual Penetration, for each shot penetrating one additional target. This perk is not awful, I just kind of don't like it on a Heavy Bolter because your piercing here is already quite high, but if you want to take this with the increased body shot damage in patch 13, it's not a terrible option. And the perk over here, Home Precision, for a 50% reduction in your weapon spread when firing without aiming, this is not very useful at all because when you're using this gun, you pretty much always want to be in heavy stance. Now for the secondary here, since we are a Raven Guard, we took the Firepower Bolt Pistol with the Raven Guard skin. Now you don't have to take this if you don't want to. You can take like a Rate of Fire Plasma, Heroic Plasma, Inferno Pistol even if you wanted, but to, you know, maximize our outfit, we decided to take this one today, and the Firepower version just has the best gun strike damage, and the ammo economy here is already very strong for us, so we don't really care too much about like losing a bit of magazine capacity and ammo reserve options. And for the perk tree, We do go down the top tree predominantly for things like Perpetual Precision, into the perk here Headhunter, Gunstrike Reload, Increased Capacity, the perk Headhunter again, and then we pick up the most important perk here, which is Elite Hunter. After killing a Majoris or higher enemy with a melee weapon, headshots will deal 50% more damage for 10 seconds. Now you may say like, Mr. Guardsman, why are we taking a melee kill perk on a heavy class? Well, this perk will also trigger on like a melee execute, not just a melee kill. So if you execute an enemy, you will trigger this perk effect. Just keep in mind, you have to have your secondary weapon here equipped to trigger this. If you swap off, you will lose the 10-second duration. And one more thing is that the fencing parry window on the Chains of Duty Heroic Heavy Bolter, this will only be active while your weapon is actually equipped. So if you swap off of that to your secondary, you are back to a balanced parry window. We can get back the moment you swap, so just keep that in mind. And that is pretty much all there is for the weapon selection. Now for our perk tree, I do start off with the perk here, Restoration first, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession towards an armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. Now, Armor Restore in Space Marine 2 is incredible because any amount of armor remaining in this game will reduce all incoming melee damage to 0, even from bosses. So this is super helpful against like a Carnifex, a Tyranid Prime, Hive Tyrant, you name it. Very powerful effect to like prevent HP damage. And if you do lose your HP, that is why we take the next perk here, Strategic Stand. While in heavy stance, dealing damage restores 15% more contested health. You don't lose for heavy hits, you cannot be knocked back, but you will not be able to move. Now, not being able to move really does not matter too much on this build. Strategic Stand is very strong for contested health recovery. Now, your total HP is lower here than it would be of Fortitude, but you kind of make up for that by taking the perk down here, Conviction, for a 25% damage reduction, because this does make you significantly tankier, even though your overall HP is lower than it would be with this perk. Next perk here is Overwhelming Power. When Iron Halo is active, all team members in 10 meters deal 10% more range damage. This is a nice buff for you and your teammates, but there's also a hidden interaction here where Overwhelming Power will trigger simultaneously with the perk over here, Brute Force, for a 25% buff to your range damage in total, and that feels really good with the Heavy Bolter. Like, let's say you're shooting a Neurothrow or something that has reduced HP in this patch, you do a ton of extra damage on the 25% buff here. It also allows you to pull off your full damage potential, so a really strong option. Next perk here is Additional Supplies. Ammo capacity for all team members' primary weapons increases by 25%. Now, why am I taking this? Well, the reason is, if we max out our ammo capacity here, we are actually getting more ammunition back on every single trigger of the perk down here, Auxiliary Reload. This one says, melee kills of extremis or higher enemies restore your primary weapons ammo by 1 magazine, or excuse me, your primary weapons ammo by 1 magazine. This will allow you to get a percentage restore on every single heavy stance weapon, because despite them saying magazine capacity here, they are restoring you on like a particular percentage, as opposed to the heavy bolt rifle that would only be restoring you like 45 shots or whatever you take with like extended magazine. So for that reason, having a higher base total actually gives you way more ammo back on every trigger of this. So that's why Additional Supplies can be pretty nice. Though I will say, if you want to have like more survivability here, you can take Encompassing Aegis instead for a 25% range damage reduction for all of your team members. This perk is also very strong. Next perk here is Consecutive Execution, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession for equipment charged by 1. Cooldown is 90 seconds. This just gives us 90-second Melta Bombs, Crack Grenades, Shocks, Pyroblaster Canisters. That helps out with Horde Clear a ton, because there are points in time where a Raged Sword Majoris will be very obnoxious to deal with than a Melta Bomb. If you do find a very powerful equipment in your game, that will help you out tremendously. Now, I will say, if you want to skip over this perk for the perk up here, Am at Will, instead, you can definitely do that. A 20% health damage reduction for 10 seconds here is very strong to make you way tankier, and will stack with Conviction down here for a total of 45%. So if you want to do that, you can. This is just better for like overall damage and horde clear, and sometimes blowing up a problem is better than being able to just like tank damage from it. Next perk here is Power Regulator. Iron Hail loses energy 20% more slowly. In my test, the Power Regulator buff here comes out to be almost as good as the Field Adjustment Iron Halo recharge rate. However, Field Adjustment, it makes you lose durability, so if you want to take this, you can do that. I just prefer this one to keep that durability without actually like losing too much on the cooldown buff that you get from this one. Next perk here is Brute Force for the reasons I previously mentioned. Then I move here into the perk Offensive Capability. When active, Iron Halo deals damage over time to all enemies within 5 meters. This perk is super strong. You will one-shot the Bramble, you will one-shot Cultists, you'll knock away Spore Mines and stuff like that. It is a great utility perk. This also does a pretty significant amount of damage over time to like Extremis, Majoris, and even bosses. It's not like that significant, I guess, but it's enough to pick you up executes occasionally. You'll even see that in the gameplay portion where a Ravener's like, just forcing me into a parry chain. We pick up the execute where we otherwise have to wait for like the third hit and a gun strike. And because of that, I think this perk here is very valuable. Though if you're in a coordinated team, the perk down here, Conversion Field, is also very strong for an ability charge increase of 50% within 20 meters of an active Iron Halo. That's pretty noticeable, especially for longer cooldowns in the game like Bulwark. Now, for the Prestige perk options, number 1, Auxiliary Reload. Melee kills of Extremis or higher enemies restore Private's ammo by 1 magazine. This just solves your ammo economy, so where a lot of your ammo will actually come from. Getting like a free ammo box or two from a single Extremis is super strong for your build, so we definitely pick this up on pretty much all of them. Next perk here is Conviction for damage reduction, like I mentioned before. Then I grab the perk here, Indomitable Spirit. While performing a gun strike, you do not lose control of heavy hits and you cannot be knocked back. Having no knockback on a gun strike is phenomenal in this game. Without this, you will be staggered at times, and the big thing is that the heavy does not have a ton of access to no knockback in this game. The only way you really get that is in your heavy stance with perks like this, or the heavy immunity perk in your actual perk tree, or with perk effects like Indomitable Spirit that will give you the no knockback, and sometimes you need to gun strike something to A, get your CHP back, or simply kill it and get an execute, so for that reason, you pretty much always want this perk. Final perk is up to you. You could take Home Precision, you could take Exponential Force, Reverberating Impact, or Duelist, really whatever you want, but these three I think you should pretty much always take. And that's pretty much all there is for this build, guys. I think the Heroic Heavy Bolter is just super fun in this patch. I'll probably make some builds around like the other relic tier options here because you can achieve higher damage on a like firepower variant, but for now this is like the overall strongest, and hopefully this build guide helped you. If you like content like this, subscribe for more, and if you want to catch me live to ask me questions about the game or just come hang out, you can find me here on YouTube or on Twitch with a link in the video description. I'll say a link to my community Discord. Hey guys, first regards from here, and I'll be talking about a double Heroic Plasma build for the heavy class in Space Marine 2 patch 13. Now this patch did give us the brand new Heroic Plasma pistol. This one has the heroic perk effect over here called Overcharged Plasma Coils. Only fires charged shots with increased damage, but charge time is longer. Now, this does a truly staggering amount of damage. You will one-shot Majora's Clumps because this isn't just like a normal charge shot on a weapon. It's basically a pocket heavy plasma, so your charge shot here has a fat AoE that will one-shot whole Majora's Clumps and do tremendous damage to Extremis and even bosses. So, a really powerful weapon at the moment, even if it's a bit awkward to use because the charge speed on this is like 5 business days. Now, for the perk tree selection, we are going for the double shot method. So first up, we take the perk over here, Plasma Collection, going here to the perk Rapid Cooling, and then I pick up the perk here, Plasma Collection again, and then I grab Divine Might for 10% more damage. Now we move here into Blast Radius for even more charge shot radius because this does help out a lot because this thing does so much damage. Moving here to the perk Perpetual Velocity. Shots will charge 20% faster. Now, even with this perk, you will still take forever to charge your weapon, so you definitely want this because without it, it's even worse. And then the final perks are Efficient Charge, into the perk here, Perfect Cooling, and the final perk is Charge Cooling. Charge shots generate 10% less heat. Usually, a single shot from this weapon will give you a full overheat, but with this perk active, you can actually get off 2 shots, so pretty nice there. And you can potentially get even more if you do trigger the perk over here, Rapid Cooling, since you won't overheat at all. But like I said before, the charge speed is so long on this weapon, getting more than 2 shots off is not very practical, and really getting 2 shots off is not super practical in a lot of scenarios in the first place, but it is doable enough. It is worth taking in my opinion. But alternatively, you could skip over this perk down here, or like the top 3 up here, and go all the way down the bottom for like the same perk Divine Might, or more importantly, Retaliation and Blast Radius and more ammo. That is up to you. Now, for the primary here, we do take the Heroic Heavy Plasma. This one only fires common shots, so it's like the opposite of our secondary here, and for this we just build for mostly ammo, going through fast venting into the perk here Contingency Plan. Then I might pick up the perk Plasma Collection, Efficient Charge, which unfortunately does nothing for you on this gun, but we have to take it to go into the next perk, which is Admin Restoration. When your health drops below 30%, your ammo reserve is restored by 25% of the maximum capacity, cannot exceed maximum ammo capacity, the cooldown is 30 seconds. Now, this perk is very good in the heavy class because if you take his best perk in this column here, which is Fortitude for a health increase of 30%, you will get so much HP on top of Conviction for a 25% health damage reduction that hanging around like 40% HP is not very difficult for you. So basically, you'll be able to get hit by a warrior, you will drop below that 30% threshold, get your ammo back, fire them or shoot at them again to get your CHP back, and then you'll be back above that 30% threshold for that 30-second cooldown, and you just rinse and repeat, and you are so tanky, you're not really at like risk of dying, so a really good synergy there. Now the next perk here is Heavy Fire, up here into the perk Supercharged Shot, which also does nothing for us. And then I grab the perk here, Heavy Immunity. While in heavy stance, you now lose control of heavy hits. When you are not taking the perk here, Strategic Stand, you pretty much always want this perk on every gun with heavy stance in the game, because without them, you will be knocked around, and being unable to shoot your gun while like a whip warrior swinging at you just sucks, so definitely pick this up. Next perk here is Retaliation. After a perk time dodge, you'll deal 25% more damage for 10 seconds. This is a very strong perk effect as well because a 25% buff is pretty easy to pull off. And the final perk here is Charge Cooling into the perk Fast Venting. And that's pretty much all there is for the Heroic Plasma tree. And I will say, if you want to go all the way down the bottom line, you can do that for more ammo. That is up to you. And also perks here like Brutal Rampage are pretty strong on this because you do just kind of like one-shot Hormagaunts and a lot of Zangors very easily with this weapon. So doing that with Brutal Rampage is quite easy to do. That is up to you. Now, for the perk tree, I do take Restoration first. Killing 7 enemies rapid succession restores an armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. This is still the best perk in this column. Now, you could take Auxiliary Ammunition if you really want to, but to be honest, even with the secondary here that gives you a one-shot of guys and has like a massive AoE, this is just not worth taking. It's not a very strong perk at all, and this one for armor restore is much better. Next perk here is Fortitude. Health increases by 30%. HP increases in Space Marine 2 are super valuable because in this game, below 25% HP, you will get a ramping damage reduction, and because of that, a base HP increase gets much better with that ramping damage reduction, and when you stack that on top of things like Conviction, it gets even stronger. So like you are pretty ridiculously tanky on the heavy class because of that, and a 30% HP increase here kind of just makes you like baseline as tanky as a Bulwark. Next perk here is Versatility. After you switch weapons, your secondary weapon does 20% more damage. The effect lasts until reloading or switching back to your primary weapon. Now, since you never reload on a Heroic Plasma or any plasma weapon in this game, this effect will be active the entire time, and a 20% damage buff to the Heroic Plasma Pistol is pretty insane. Next perk here is Additional Supplies. Ammo capacity for all team members' primary weapons increases by 25%. This is a perk I like to take on the Heroic Plasma especially because this one is super ammo hungry, though you could take Encompassing Aegis instead as an option. I just prefer this one on this build. Next perk here is Consecutive Execution. Killing 7 enemies in rapid succession restores equipment charged by 1. The cooldown is 90 seconds. Now a 90-second cooldown on Melta Bombs, Pyroblaster Canisters, Crack Grenades, you name it. It is still a top tier effect in this game, though if you do want to take the perk up here at will, you can definitely do that for health damage reduction after Iron Halo deactivation. Next perk here is Power Regulator. Moving here into the perk Brute Force. When Iron Halo is in cooldown, range damage increases by 15%. This perk is just a free range damage buff, so I pretty much always pick it up, and the perk up here, Saving Grace, is dog shit, and Wrath of the Imperium is pretty funny and occasionally strong. It's just that if you get knocked over during your Iron Halo at all, you will lose the Iron Halo effect and have to start all over from like the top, which it does kind of suck. Next perk here is Offensive Capability. When active, Iron Halo deals damage over time to all enemies within 5 meters. And this is just a free damage on like the Majoris, Extremis, and even bosses. It also one-shot Cultists, one-shot Bramble, and Spore Mines, so pretty nice utility perk, though if you're playing with like a coordinated team, Conversion Field can be a bit better. Now for our prestige perk selection here, I do take Auxiliary Reload first. Melee kills of Extremis or higher enemies restoring preference ammo by 1 magazine. This will give you a higher restore based on the max capacity you have on your weapon, or at least for heavy stance weapons, because weapons like Heavy Plasma, weapons like Melta, and Pyrecannon, these do not actually have a magazine, so you get a percentage restore instead. So having a higher base capacity from Additional Supplies, that will give you more ammo back on each trigger, so pretty good synergy there. Next perk here is Conviction for a 25% health damage reduction for 10 seconds on armor break. This makes you way tankier, pretty much always pick this up. And the final perks here are Indomitable Spirit and Reverberating Impact, or your choice of Exponential Force and even Duelist, but Duelist is apparently bugged according to the devs to not work with balance parry windows currently, which does kind of suck. So for now, I stick with Reverberating Impact and Indomitable Spirit. And that's pretty much all there is for this build, guys. You will put out a ton of single target and AoE damage with this build. The heavy plasma here on the heroic variant, even though you only have common shots still have AoE damage on the heavy plasma. And also, if you reload immediately after you fire a shot, you will never overheat on this gun. You'll see that in the actual gameplay, so pretty easy to pull off. And the secondary here really make up for any AoE you're lacking on your primary. So that's pretty much all there is for this one. Guys, first regardment here, and so I'll be talking about a venting speed heavy bolter strategic stand build for Space Marine 2 patch 13. Now, the heavy bolter got a buff like all the other bolter weapons in this patch, so now you do 30% more body shot damage. That makes this weapon feel way better. And today I will be taking the venting speed version here on the relic tier, because this one pretty much fires forever on this build. And with the perk over here, strategic stand, that means you pretty much get your CHP back constantly against Minotaurs and stuff like that. It is very hard to die while you are able to fire your weapon with this perk, so for that reason we will be building around that today and around like weapon heating. Now, for the perk tree here, we do start off with the perk perpetual cooling. Weapon heating decreases by 10%. Now, the venting speed like stat here, this will affect the overheat of your weapon. So basically it reduces your like not just your cooldown time, but also the buildup of heat. So this perk being a percentage increase on this massive number is very nice. The next perk here is contingency plan, moving here into the perk headhunter up into increased capacity. Then I pick up the perk here, adamant restoration. When your health drops below 30%, your ammo reserve is restored by 25% of the maximum capacity, cannot exceed maximum ammo capacity, the cooldown is 30 seconds. Now, we are going for like full ammo on this build, so a percentage restore of our ammunition here will be very high for us because we're taking increased capacity, we're taking increased capacity again, and we are also taking the perk over here, additional supplies, so our base ammo is going to be very high, and this perk will give us a ton of value. And also, with the strategic stand perk, if you are below like 40% HP or something like that, you will constantly trigger this perk off cooldown all the time and just get all of your HP back, because this perk will trigger if you actually have CHP active. So like, let's say for example you get hit by a sword warrior, they knock down your HP bar below 20%, or like below the 30% threshold here, and then you have all your contested health there to recover. If you use strategic stand to get that all back, you still get all the ammunition off of this perk, so a really good option there. Next perk here is heavy might, up here into heavy might again for a 30% damage buff in heavy stance, because you pretty much only fire this gun in heavy stance unless you're shooting against like a cultist or something. And next perk here is discipline. When you have low ammo, you'll deal 25% more damage. Now, this will hit a threshold for you, and the way that ammunition restoration on the heavy bolter works is that usually you get ammo drip fed back to you, so it's kind of like easy to hang around this lower ammunition count and just get this perk effect off all the time. Next perk here is fast venting, up here to increase capacity. Then I pick up the perk perpetual cooling again for even less heating, and the final perk here is divine might for a 10% damage buff. That's pretty much all there is for the perk tree. Now, if you want to, you could skip increased capacity and go for something down here like weapon strike for more melee damage, or things here like heavy precision for a tighter spread on your weapon, but that is up to you. I don't find this perk is that useful, but does help occasionally with like a long range fight. Now, for the secondary option, I do take the firepower relic tier plasma pistol. Now, in patch 13, they did buff up all of the plasma weapons for the most part here, so the common shots on this gun are significantly better, and the gun strike damage on the firepower variant in the 13.1 hotfix is very high on this weapon compared to the other options. So for that reason, we are taking this one, though I will say, if you do want the heroic plasma, you can definitely do that. Now, for the perk tree on this, I do start off with the perk plasma collection, into the perk here, rapid cooling, plasma collection, divine might, blast radius, pretty standard, perpetual velocity, and plasma collection again, efficient charge, and the final perk is perfect cooling. That's pretty much all there is for the secondary. Now, for our perk tree, I do start off with the perk here, restoration first, killing 7 enemies in rapid succession for an armor segment. The cooldown is 15 seconds. Now, armor restoration in this game is super valuable, and honestly, this entire column kind of sucks besides this perk anyways, so you definitely want this. And next perk here is strategic stand, because we are not taking the perk over here in our weapon, heavy immunity for no knockback during your heavy stance. So because of that, this makes up for not only only the CHP here, but also allows us to get our no knockback effect. Now, I do want to say that no knockback in Space Marine 2, the way this works is that any attack that would knock you over will only stagger you. Any attack that would stagger you does nothing. But that being said, there are some very heavy attacks in this game that will still knock you over or stagger you in this mode. It does take some learning to like get used to which ones those actually are, but just be aware that for the most part, against light attacks from like Majoris and stuff like that, you will be able to tank them and not get staggered and just fire your gun the entire time. But heavier unblockables from like Sword Warriors, those will still knock you over, so be a little careful. Next perk here is Overwhelming Power. When Iron Halo is active, all team members within 10 meters deal 10% more range damage. Moving here into the perk Additional Supplies for more ammunition, and the final perks here are Adamant Will for a 20% health damage reduction for 10 seconds on Iron Halo deactivation. Now, this one is actually very strong for this build because we do not have the perk here Fortitude for health increase, so we are mainly relying on damage reduction to be tanky at all, because the thing is, in base and Space Marine 2, you are very squishy without damage reduction. Like, the Tech Marine is only kind of tanky sometimes because he's a ton of armor restoration, but on this guy, you have the perk here Conviction for 25% health damage reduction for 10 seconds on armor break, and you can also cycle back into this perk over and over for a total of 45% when they are combined. Now, one thing I want to mention about this perk is that you cannot reapply this perk until the 10-second duration is up. So like you can see this underneath your HP bar, like the upper left corner, like this will have a little active effect like this icon. And once this is actually run out, then you can use your Iron Halo again and reactivate it. And with the perk here, Field Adjustment, that says Iron Halo recharges 20% faster, but its durability is reduced by 25%, you can actually time it to have this perk up like 24/7. It's a little obnoxious to do. You do not have to do that to actually play around with this build, but if you want to do that, that is an option. Next perk here is Brute Force. When Iron Halo's in cooldown, range damage increases by 15%. Now, the Iron Halo will count as in cooldown while it's active, so this will stack with the perk over here, Overwhelming Power, for a 25% range damage buff, so pretty nice perk interaction there. And the final perk here is Offensive Capability. When active, Iron Halo deals damage over time to all enemies within 5 meters. This perk is super strong for utility. You can walk through Bramble, you can walk through these skulls from like Triple Sorcerers, which actually happened in the run I'll show, and also you are able to do things like knock over Spore Mines, so a really good perk option. Also Cultist die in one hit, and also this will pick you up some free executes. Now, for the Prestige perk options, the first one we take here is Auxiliary Reload. Melee kills of extremist or higher enemies restore your opponent's ammo by 1 magazine. Now, with the heavy stance weapons here, this will actually be a percentage restore, so if we have a higher base capacity with perks like increased capacity or additional supplies, just like the Adamant Restoration perk we talked about before, you will get a larger trigger and more ammunition back off of every one of these, so a really good combo there. Next perk here is Conviction for that damage reduction, and going into the perk here, Indomitable Spirit. While performing a gun strike, you do not lose control from heavy hits and cannot be knocked back. Now, the only knockback source, or the only no knockback source on the heavy class, is a perk like this and your heavy stance perks like Strategic Stand, and because of that, being able to gun strike without getting like slapped around by a chaos spawn, that is super valuable for not just picking up kills but also recovering HP, so for that reason you pretty much always pick this up. And the final perk is up to you, and I just took the perk here, Reverberating Impact. And that is pretty much everything for this build, guys. The Heavy Bolter Venting Speed version is super fun right now, a really underrated option. I'll probably make one around the max firepower eventually with something here like the perk Thermal Boost, but for now, this one is honestly one of my favorite Heavy Bolter builds, and I am kind of Heavy Bolter pilled in patch 13 anyways, so hopefully this build guide helped you. And if you like content like this, subscribe for more, and if you want to watch me live to ask me questions about the game or just come hang out, you can find me here on YouTube or on Twitch with a link in the video description. I'll send a link to my community Discord. And as always, thank you for watching, take it easy, bye.